This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Joining us today is Alex Walker, the CEO of East Star Resources, following news that the company have received $500,000 in grant funding from BHP Billiton to aid in copper porphyry exploration over there in Kazakhstan. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Alex. I mean, this looks quite, on the surface, pretty significant news. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, firstly, thanks very much for having me again, Mark. Look, we're delighted. It was a very, very long and arduous application process, as I'm sure you can imagine. BHP is very resolute in making sure they've got the right partners and they want to do the right amount of due diligence. So we're incredibly pleased to have got to this stage with them, and we're really, really excited to be working with them in Kazakhstan.
That's good. And I was going to ask you about the application process. You say it's a very long and arduous one. What sort of criteria or picture are they looking for?
Sure. So they put out an initial call, around 12 months in advance for applicants to pitch their exploration concept. And, we've been thinking about copper porphyries in Kazakhstan for some time. Porphyries are typically quite difficult to explore for junior companies because they're huge systems and require quite a large amount of money to spend. So it was a difficult one for East Star to tackle by itself, but nonetheless, we love the concept. And so working with new director, who I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute, Chris Van Wyck, we developed that concept. And here we are, sort of six months later, having been approved and working with some of the likes of BHP, as I say, is outstanding for us.
And could you explain a bit more about BHP Explore in terms of what the purpose is? I noticed from the RNS that they talk about accelerators to establish a fit-for-purpose exploration portfolio. But I mean, you also mentioned in the RNS that you perhaps get other things as well, like not just the cash, but perhaps access to networks and mentorship, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, we're right at the start of the program, so it's a bit hard for me to go into a lot of detail. But the concept is that these large companies know how to do things in world's best practice, not only from an exploration perspective, but also from an ecology and social and environmental perspective as well, and governance perspective. So there's all kinds of things that they bring to the table. But certainly, in terms of various service providers, access to the best international experts in their fields, whether it be geophysics, geochemical sampling, geology comprehension, and the most up-to-date methods and analytical tools. It all comes to bear on how to explore what can be quite significant exploration packages. And as I said before, these things can be very difficult or very expensive for junior companies to tackle by themselves. So having access to that level of expertise, it's going to be quite the learning curve for me, I'm sure. But nonetheless, it's a really exciting opportunity.
Indeed. And do you get any feedback from BHP as to why you got this funding? Why they sort of liked your application?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, principally it's two things. It's the team and it's the prospectivity. Okay. So quite clearly the team got the tick of approval again from a very, very thorough due diligence process. So we were really happy. It's a lot of validation for us and the work we've put in Kazakhstan and everything we've done to date as well as obviously the likes of Chris joining the team with, brings immense geological expertise to it, which is just fantastic. And on top of that, it's, as I said, it's the prospectivity. I mean, I've said before, Kazakhstan is Western Australia in the 1970s, and it's there's two quite significant world-class porphyry copper projects in an area that's 230,000 square kilometres in this one particular arc that we're starting to investigate. And the odds are is that there's a significant number more of those undercover. And so BHP very much see that prospectivity and are using us as a way to get some leverage into understanding it a bit more.
Excellent. Okay. Well, you mentioned there it is about the porphyry element to the project here. Of course, when we spoke before, it's about the VMS, and it's proving up the VMS potential there. So, I mean, have you got sort of two different exploration programs going on at the moment then, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're building the team as we speak for the porphyry exploration strategy. So our intent for 2024 is to run both strategies in parallel. One of the things I've said previously is VMS projects are one of the best projects you can have for junior mining companies, because there are a return on invested capital is so fantastic. They're not as big as porphyries, but the grades tend to carry something with a much lower capex. So you can start as a small company and grow to a big one very well, very easily with a VMS project. So we're still incredibly excited by that portfolio. My existing team is still very much focused on that portfolio. So that's both progressing Vancouver through resource drilling in 2024 and what we hope will be to the point that we can put a pre-feasibility study on it and apply for our mining license, and also progress our next tier projects in the VMS portfolio to drill ready status and drill those this year as well. So we see the two running, in parallel. As I say, we've got the BHP grant for the porphyry exploration strategy, so that will carry the cost for that until such a time, we hope, as we've been acquiring licenses and developing them to, potentially almost drill ready status. And, at the end of the day, we're going to be entering a very long-term massive copper bull market. So I'll take as many great copper projects as I can find, quite frankly, as long as it's not causing major dilution to shareholders, which of course this isn't, which is just fantastic.
Yes, well, that's of course very important, isn't it? Because exploration projects and exploration companies need access to that cash to go and make that discovery to then deliver, hopefully, the returns to shareholders. What are your plans then for Q1? Are you still drawing up plans for the porphyry side of it? You mentioned Chris Van Wyk there joining the board. Are you still working on plans? And I do want to make the point that, of course, that's very good. You've got that money from BHP, but you've got to, of course, use it wisely, spend it wisely, and hopefully that funding will go some way to perhaps de-risking elements of the project, which in theory then could make future funding opportunities, easier to get across the line. So, I mean, what are your plans? How are they developing, particularly with the porphyry here, and how's the best use of funds?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Mark. So, I mean, even applying for the program, we had to put together, an exploration concept strategy, initial targeting, and so on. So all that was part of the application process. And so we have a framework in place now, and as we speak, we're refining the details of that. So, as I said, we're going to build the porphyry exploration team. We're in advanced conversations with people that hopefully we can close that in the next week or two. That will help lead that exploration strategy. And I very much see Chris as providing an additional level of oversight. In that, he's led these sorts of teams before for Fortescue Metals Group, for First Quantum. And other major companies. And so, he's absolutely the right man for the job to assist in that. And so, the concept basically, as you've exactly pointed out, is how much can we de-risk this project to with that money to take it forward. After that stage, it'll be one of two things. It'll either be something that eStar needs to try and take forward itself, or we look to partner. And, BHP, having paid for the first part, will be fantastic as an obvious partner. But there aren't any specific obligations that come with with this funding other than a right of first refusal from BHP. So it gives us a huge opportunity actually to take these forward. And we've already seen Tech partner with other people in Kazakhstan, some friends of ours listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange. First Quantum have partnered as well, and Barrick have said that they're coming into Kazakhstan. So all the majors are going to be here exploring. You heard it here first 2 years ago, and it's now really starting to get some legs, Kazakhstan. So it's a hugely exciting time.
Excellent. So in terms of eStar, then it's going to be a pretty active year, is it, in terms of exploration and news flow on that front?
Oh, we certainly hope so. I mean, it's important to realize that at the start of the porphyry exploration program, you're not immediately walking up and starting to drill holes, which is part of the reason why it's expensive for juniors. Capital markets require, news flow that isn't, the sort of detail that you typically get in a first pass exploration. And so it allows us to do that really detailed, really methodical work without having to be, overly concerned about paying for it, again, about the dilution, whilst we continue to progress for Kuba and the other VMS projects, which are more advanced, are drill ready, are converting into JORC status and having very, very high grade rock chips from the likes of Talovskoye and so on. So all of those will be really, really exciting this year. And we see the porphyry as just a fantastic bolt on to that. So, I said it before, I'll say it again. It's a fantastic time to be a copper player. I think 2024 is going to be a really big year. I was just reading a Goldman Sachs note the other day who are forecasting a 500,000 ton deficit in 2025 and a 5 million ton deficit in 2030. So It's going to be a pretty incredible decade for copper, and being a brownfields and greenfields explorers gives us pretty good leverage for that.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Alex Walker, the CEO of East Star Resources.
Thanks so much, Mark.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.